Thanks a lot for being with us this afternoon. 65 people all in all. Fantastic. That's wonderful to share with us what your experiences are with supplementary digital helpers. This is the topic of today's webinars, and I'm very excited to read in the chat what kind of experiences you've made, what you would recommend, what you would like to see improved. So this is going to be a real interesting session also for me, because I'm sure there's loads of very experienced guys out there who can help us get even better in our online teaching, on our online teaching journey. So let's see what I've prepared for today. I thought this could be our agenda. We're going to have a look at digital helpers and what they're good for, followed by the use of a lesson planner. In this case, I thought we might have a look at the Basis for Business B2 Unterrichtsmanager, the UMA, as we call it at Cornelius, so the lesson planner. Part 3, let's have a look at what some interactive whiteboards could do for you and how you could use them. And finally, some storytelling tools. All of these are tools that I've already tried in my sessions. And as I said, you will get further info, as I already mentioned, you will get further information in the handout that you can download at the end of this session. But again, if there is something that you'd like to share where you'd say, yes, there is a tool I know that I find absolutely wonderful, please feel free to share in the chat. I'm sure there's lots of colleagues out there and guys out there who would benefit from your experience. So let's get started. Digital helpers, and what are they good for? Do we need them at all? Let's see. Frankly, when I started to teach online, even way before the pandemic forced many of us to teach online, I very often had the feeling when I was sitting in front of my screen that it was something like this. I had lots of black tiles in front of me with lots of question marks. Sometimes I would see names underneath or at the bottom of the tiles. I knew that Heike and Linda and Susanna was there, or Bernd was there, for example. But I was unable to put a name to the face. I felt like all these people were big question marks. I didn't know what type of learner they were. Were they nervous when they joined the session? Where were they? Were they in home office? Were they in their studies? What were they wearing? Were they like stylish, prepared for this session, or were they there in their gym jams? I didn't know. So I was wondering, how could I make this whole experience a bit more interactive? How could I draw people into this learning experience? And in order to do that, I did a little bit of digging. You will find further information at the bottom of this slide. I've put all the literature that I'm referring to also in the handout, so no need to take screenshots or to scribble or jot down what you see there. So I thought, okay, all these people look kind of the same in the screen. They're in black tiles, or I see their faces down to here, like you're seeing me now. But what are they really like? Aren't they all different? Aren't they all kind of different learner types? And how can I make them bring these learner type experience into the sessions? Because many of them are definitely different. Oops. Just something happened that shouldn't happen, namely the PowerPoint presentation disappeared. So maybe Özlem can help. Shall we draw the PowerPoint from the left in there and enlarge it again, talking about technical glitches? This is what sometimes happens. So I'm simply going to put this here in the middle of the screen and go in full mode session. Okay, there we go. Are you guys now able to see the presentation again, or has your screen gone black? Super. Yes, this is exactly what scares me witless. Yes, somebody typed in the chat. Same here. You should know my adrenaline level now. Okay, so there we go. Let's move forward to where we were before. So here we go. So digital helpers, what are they good for, was our question. And I was referring to this, mix of people that I have there, these black tiles on screen, can't see anybody, don't know where they're from, whether they're nervous as I am or not. And I was wondering how I can bring all these different kind of personalities and the learner types on board into this learning experience that we share together. Because there is always bound to be somebody in there who's different from the others. Somebody far cleverer than me wrote that the individual differences in students play an equally important role in students' perceptions of cognitive engagement gains. Okay, So what's that supposed to mean, and what does that have to do with digital helpers? What it means is that it's not just all the very useful material and resources that we as teachers bring on board is very important for the students, and undoubtedly it is. It also means that the experience of other students being with them together and learning in a different way and sharing in a different way makes it very important for students, is very important for students to see how they learn. Let's have an example. For example, I had an English teacher at school who I absolutely adored, and I think this was one of the reasons why I decided to study English. I had a Latin teacher at school, which I personally hated. And I'm sure I was also not his favorite student, and I didn't decide to study Latin, although it was a subject I had to deal with. But undoubtedly, the experience of just, adoring this teacher and benefiting from the way he taught made me learn English in a totally different way than the way I learned Latin. Basically, I've forgotten all about it anyway. So, and this idea of students' perception of engagement, of cognitive engagement, is super important to the learning process. Now, if we can't get people on board in a digital way, then our efforts will be all in vain, I'm afraid. And this is what digital helpers are good for. Reason 2, why are digital helpers useful? Secondly, we are all in a digital room together, are we not? I'm in a digital room with you. I know there's now 71 people here. Okay, you know me, you can see me, I can't see you. You are present, but you're not real, to be honest. I can see your names. I won't mention your names to protect your privacy, but I can see your names, but still I don't know who you are. I know where some of you are from because you were so kind as to share that in the chat, but still I don't know where you are from. I don't know whether you're nervous now, whether what I'm telling now is interesting to you or not. I have absolutely no idea what's happening out there, although we're all together in one digital room. So the difference between being present and being real is a big one. Other people might also say being authentic is a big one. And digital helpers can support us in making people become more real and not just present in a digital way as tiles or names, or sometimes, when you have MS Teams sessions, you only see these bubbles with the initials of people. So, a VL and HL and a KG is present, for example. That's all that you know. So being real and being present is a difference, and we need to make people from being just present to become real in our sessions. Somebody's writing in the chat that you can't hear anything. I hope this doesn't have anything to do with my microphone. If you want to, you can still do the audio check by clicking on the meeting button at the top of your screen on the left-hand side corner. You can go through the audio support check there. The system will then check whether your audio works okay. Okay, the others seem to be able to hear, so I just go on with it. Natalie, if you still have issues, then just type it into the chat. Okay, so being real and being present are two different things when teaching online. And I think digital helpers can help us make people become real and not just present. Reason 3. There we go. We all work together in a network when teaching online. Of course, it's me now at the one end and all you guys at the other end of the screen, but hopefully by using the chat and by getting feedback from you, also later using a few surveys, I'll be able to do some networking with you. And the reason I'm doing this is, of course, because I'm very interested in what you think, and I want to pick your brains about what I'm teaching about here, but also because I want students to be self-aware when they are learning. Some clever guy wrote, he proposes that, and now comes a bit of pedagogical jumbo mumbo, I'm afraid, proposes that metacognitive perspective of self-awareness, understanding, and regulating our cognition is what enables effective learning to take place. Okay, so what's that supposed to mean? Let's go through this in detail. Self-awareness, understanding, and regulating our cognition. Self-awareness in learning basically means you are able to judge what you're doing and whether how you're doing it benefits your learning. by just staring at a screen or reading a text that you are supposed to do for whatever reason, this doesn't necessarily coax you into perceiving yourself as a learner. Understanding and regulating your cognition means thinking about how you learn, whether what you learn is useful to you, or is it maybe something that will not be beneficial to you in your further career or in your learning process. All this can happen while learning and should happen while learning. Also when we teach digitally, and this is where digital helpers come in. Okay, so far, 3 reasons to go for digital helpers. To find out how different students are and how they can benefit from each other's differences, make them become real and not just present, and help them to think about how they're learning and whether what they're learning is useful to them and in what way they should be learning what you have to offer. So these are 3 reasons to get digital helpers on board. Okay, can I ask you to quickly give me some feedback in the chat? Do you already use digital helpers or do you teach online merely by using a video screen? Could you quickly type something into the chat? I'd like to know. Just curious, to be honest. No helpers. Lots of helpers. Cool. So you 2 guys who just wrote in the chat should undoubtedly benefit from each other. Video screen. Yeah, some guys are already mentioning some that they use, including brand names. Yes, many people use PowerPoints. Okay. Okay, somebody there saying something in the chat that I've never heard of, so I'm going to make a note of that. Etherpad. Okay, cool. Never heard of. Thanks for sharing this. I'm definitely going to Google this and find this out. Games and PowerPoints seem to be very popular. Cool, okay. Some use collaborative writing tools. Super. Okay. Yeah, somebody's just clarified what that thing is that I've never heard about. Yeah, some mentioned video platforms, super useful. Thanks so much for sharing this. I wish I could scribble all this down while speaking, but I'm sure we'll have access to the chat later and I'll be able to benefit from all this. That's really fantastic. So much out there already. Great. I thought we could do 2 things now that I can see that you're already using lots of digital helpers. I thought we could look at what is on offer from the teacher's perspective and what the publishing company has on offer should you be teaching with, for example, the Basis for Business series, which I presently use. And we could have a look at it from the learner's perspective, looking at what kind of tools are out there that enable us to bring learners a bit more on board in the learning experience and in the online teaching experience. So we'll be looking at it from both angles, so to say. So let's have a look at what, for example, a lesson planner looks like. I may be preaching to the converted here. Can I quickly put this survey in the middle, and could you let me know whether you already use the lesson planner by Cornelissen for any kind of business series? Because if so, then I probably will not have to go into the details. Oh, super. Okay, some say never heard of it. So around about 50% seem, it's the other way around. 8 to 10% use it, and the others have either never heard of it or they kind of know it but don't use it yet. Okay. So this is what it looks like right now. So you can see the outcome of the survey. Okay. I'm going to move the survey out of our screen right now. So then let's have a look at what such a lesson planner could look like and how it could work as a digital helper for students. And in order to do this, I'm going to share my screen with you because I've downloaded the Unterrichtsmanager, the UMA, or the lesson planner to my computer. So let's go for the next technical glitch. I'm going to share my screen with you. There we go. So here we have the lesson planner. I'm presently working on Unit 8 of Basis for Business B2. That's the series written by Mike Hogan and Carol Eilertson and the fabulous Anne Hodgkinson. You may have heard Mike speaking about this at the Cornelsen Sprachentag, for example. So he's contributed lots of the business life sections and a lot of video content to the series. I quite like working with it, especially in company training. So highly recommendable, I think. So this is the B2 book. And at present, as I said, we're working on global challenges. So what my students would see on the screen could be something like this. However, I can do much more than that. I can, for example, decide that students should only see a certain part of what I want to work on. Let's say, for example, this part. In this way, I enable students to focus on just parts of the screen instead of having them look at the entire book as if they had a whole page in front of them. And I can go back again to where I was before, and they will have a look at the entire book. Also, on the entire pages. Also, all the teaching material is available. So here is the audio script, PDFs and worksheets, which will open as soon as you click onto the link. So this is really, really useful to have. Of course, I can also make the whole thing a lot larger. Should I want students to look at certain areas in more detail, for example? I can also move backwards and forwards easily. I can have a look at what my lesson plan looks like. So I can type in here, for example, that I want lesson plan and global challenges, for example, or November 23rd, let's say. And I can also add all sorts of materials, maybe extras, videos, homemade worksheets, that sort of thing. I could add that to the lesson planner and have it available on screen. This is very nice in case you want to avoid switching from screen to screen, especially when you're using a video-supported platform. This might become a bit wibbly wobbly when you have lots of individual files open at the bottom of your screen. It's nice to have everything on one screen, and you know it's in the planning menu bar of your session. So very, very handy. No, I don't want to save that right now. Okay. So you can see all your materials up here, and you can see your personal plannings up here. You can have your ebook and the materials, and you can go back to the ebook itself. Okay, but this is not all. You can also work interactively on the screen. If you switch on the Anmerkungen again, then what you can do is you can, for example, there we go. You can, for example, invite students to highlight something like this in the text, for example, if there are certain things you want to focus on. You can also add text fields if you like. You can write in the text. This is an example, for example. You can underline things should you find something particularly useful, like focus on this, or focus on the word ideally, for example. You can move around the screen easily. Yes. And in case you have too many annotations, too many Anmerkungen on your screen, you just decide, no, I don't want to see them right now. I just want the screen as it is. So all of this is really, really helpful from the teacher's point of view. So you can do a lot of organizing, a lot of preparation all on one platform, which is really super handy, especially the fact that you'll have all the material on the left-hand side. Now, this page doesn't have any extra material, but whenever you switch to a site which has audios with it, for example, or further PDFs or something like this, then you'll be able to see that. So here we have 5 materials, including a track, including didactical help and the teacher guide, including copies, worksheets, and everything on one and the same platform. Now, this is useful from the teacher's point of view? How can the students come on board? So let me go back to where you are right now. So I'm going to finish the presentation and get our presentation into our field again. Aslim, can everybody see my presentation now? Can you guys see the PowerPoint again? Yes, very good. Okay. So the lesson planner, as I was saying, is super helpful for us as teachers. I use it a lot. I use it a lot, share the screen with my students, and then I know everything is just on one platform. It's in my lesson planner, and I can move back and fro. I can annotate, and the text, super, always easy. However, the students cannot. The students are not able to come on board and write something in the text. Only us as teachers can. This might or might not be a disadvantage. Of course, one might argue and say, well, the students can say what they want the teacher to do, and you then do it for the students, which is, of course, always an option. However, I think there might be something even more interactive, and this more interactive bit is, for example, in the Page Player app. Again, I don't know how many of you guys already use the Page Player. This one is an app, if you could help me with that in the survey. This is an app that is available for free. That's always nice to hear, especially for us freelancers, isn't it? Aha, here we have almost a third of you already using the Page Player. Cool. 25%. Okay, there we go. So at present, it's 25%. And some of you saying yes, others never heard of it, others saying yes in the chat. Okay. So the Page Player is something that is really, really cool because this enables you to get your students on board. The Page Player is there for teachers and students. It's downloadable for free from any app store that is your favorite app store. So no matter whether it's for an Android or whether it's for an iPad, doesn't matter, it's available. And you can use, the question just popped up in the chat, yes, you can use the Page Player in online classes. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. So this is what most of you guys were saying. So 26% already use it, but the majority seems to have not heard of it before. So I'm going to move our survey out of our main room. This is the logo. What you see there in the middle is the logo of the Page Player app. So should you have your smartphone available right now, feel free to quickly go to your Google Play Store or to any other app store that you might use and check out. The only thing you want to do is to type in Cornelissen Page Player app. That's it. And I'm sure any app store will find it immediately. What happens then is that you will be asked to decide which book to pick which book you're working on at present. And I'm going to show you how this works because I've made a little video to help us along with the Page Player app. And the video looks like this. So Aslam, could you have a look at this, whether this works okay or not?
Once you've downloaded the Page Player app from your favorite app store, you will be seeing this screen. You can now either scan the book cover or show all available books. I have already downloaded all the material for Coursebook Basis for Business B2. There we go. As you can see, a complete download would require 128 MB space on your smartphone, so you might want to check how much space is available. I personally decided to download Unit 8 only. There we go. This is all the material available for Unit 8. We have an optional text, we have 3 audios, 3 additional grammar, vocab and work skills exercises, and an extra practice exercise. Let's have a look at what the additional vocab exercise looks like. This exercise is reviewing idioms used in Unit 8. She's dragging her feet. Wait a moment, what is this about? She's taking a long time to decide. Let's have a look at the following quiz. As you can see, this is an easy multiple choice, which asks students to choose which might be the best paraphrase of the idiom above. There we go. I can now either ask the app to check what I've ticked, or I can decide to hop on to the next exercise. This one is asking me to choose among 3 different adjectives, depending on context. And here is another one about adjectives. This time, I need to do the typing myself. Okay, let's see. Even something as small as getting emails when you've just cleared your inbox can be, I'll go for frustrating. And here is another one. Once I've finished all exercises, I can ask the app to solve. Well, that didn't go too well. You can do the exercises as often as you want. Practice makes masters.
Okay.
Once you've downloaded the Page Player app from your favorite app.
There we go. So the Page Player app basically enables students to do the exercises whenever, wherever they want. This includes all the audio material and the video material in the book. So any video material that is in the book, you will also find in the Page Player app, plus additional text exercises. So the beauty of this is, I think, that you can simply switch off your screen. And in the last workshop, we talked a lot about how beneficial it can be from time to time to switch off the screen and just leave students to their work. So switch off the screen, ask them to watch the video on their smartphone, and then return after a minute or 2 or 3 minutes to discuss what they saw in the video. So this is the way, for example, I use it in online sessions. There's a question that just popped up a few minutes ago. How can we use the Page Player app in online sessions? I use it for off-screen time. I ask students or invite students to do something and then return to the screen. And everybody can do it wherever they want, in the kitchen, in their study, in the living room, wherever. Interactive exercises are not yet available for all books, but we're working on the higher level books to have interactive exercises and more text, something that just popped up in the chat. Somebody just said you have a lot of students who don't have smartphones. Okay, the Page Player app is specifically meant, of course, for students who have smartphones. If you need the material as download material in MP3 or MP4 files, then you just go to the website. We can give you some help, the Cornelissen website. We can give you some help later on, maybe at the end of the workshop, and show you how you can get at least a lot of that material downloadable without having a smartphone, so without using the app if you don't want to. However, it's a really cool thing to do, to have everything on your smartphone. No excuse from students anymore saying, I couldn't watch the video. Say, no, you can have the app, and you can even use it offline, which is really nice. So you don't depend anymore on kind of shaky internet connections or other technical glitches that can always happen. So these are the things that I use that are book related, where I'm really thankful the publishers made the effort, to help us along and get all this material in digital format for me to use on a screen when I teach online. However, there is more than that. There are other means available that are heavily student focused, and many of them also for free. So let's have a look at what other tools one could use in interactive digital teaching. Remember, we were speaking at the beginning of the workshop, we were speaking about how useful it is to empower students to be on board and to experience how other people and other students learn and how to think of how they could possibly benefit from how other students learn what you have to offer students. So we're going to have a look at how this works with concept boards and whiteboards. I suppose those of you who already use an online video platform, either at the VHS or maybe one of those typical business meeting tools, you probably already know the whiteboards, right, that most of these platforms offer. So Zoom has one, for example, MS Teams has one, so it's a simple screen sharing option. So I guess most of you already know that. Could you give me some feedback in the chat whether you already use yes, no, some yes. Okay. Yeses and nos. Okay, so good mix. Yeah, cool. Some of you mentioned a platform that I've heard the VHS uses a lot. So, yeah, super, very useful. Thank you for sharing. So what I mean by whiteboard is this is usually a board that looks exactly like the whiteboard you would have in your real room when we were still allowed to teach on site. Only this one is available in digital format and is usually hidden behind your screen sharing option. Almost all video platforms have a screen sharing option, and many of them include a whiteboard, also called whiteboard. You just click on the whiteboard and then a new screen will open, a whiteboard, usually with a lot of extras like difficult shapes that you can fill in, a pencil, options to fill in text fields. The beauty of it is that all of them can be used collaboratively. That is, not only you as a teacher writing on it, but all students together. Because any good platform has the option to share the whiteboard with all students, so all students be able to work on that collaborative, and that's really super cool and nice. I love whiteboards because they give students the chance to get into this learning experience in a playful way. You know, they can add fun comments, they can play around with this, they can draw funny figures and that sort of thing. But you can also use it, for example, for serious business content, like writing an email together, for example. Why not use a whiteboard and write an email collaborative with everybody entering phrases they find useful, content they want to see reflected in the email, underlining stuff that they find useful. This is almost as if you were together, really together, in one room, standing in front of the whiteboard with everybody having the pencil in their hand and scribbling along. So this is really, really nice. Somebody already mentioned Zoom, for example, has a whiteboard. Yeah. So just check out, you will find that most video platforms have one integrated, and usually also in the free versions. So let me show you what one of mine looks like, for example. So the useful features that I always go for is I want movable objects in different shapes and colors. So I want stars and asterisks and clouds and bubbles and all that sort of thing. I want sticky notes. Sticky notes are so super useful. Sticky notes usually come in different colors and enable students to collect word clouds, to make notes, to collect vocabulary, to go for difficult words that they think one should memorize, for example. So to have a whiteboard full of sticky notes is just an enjoyable experience, and it's such a nice, playful, and colorful experience that all my students love. I want the option to upload pics and files. A nice thing of a good whiteboard is if you can upload, for example, let's say the picture of a technical machine part you want to discuss. Students can then use their sticky notes or their text fields to label the different parts, for example. So really, really useful to have. And one thing that an external whiteboard, should you use one, so not an internal one that's integrated into your video platform, one thing you should want to make sure is students should have easy access. Nobody likes, having to enter and to fill in credentials and what have you, before being able to enter a concept board or a whiteboard. This is why I use the ones that I mentioned in my handout, because those are really, really easily accessible. The only thing you need to do is to put a link into the chat. Students click onto the chat and they enter the whiteboard or the concept board without having to sign in or to fill in an email address or telephone number or whatever. And then you can use it collaboratively. So really, really, really nice. And it should work in real time. So I don't like it when I have 10 students working on a whiteboard and I don't know, student A has to wait for 3 seconds until their sticky notes pop up or they're unable to move things around. So make sure you go for one that really, really reflects this interactive, we're doing this all together on one screen experience. What do I use it for? For brainstorming ideas, for kick-off meetings, for needs analysis, something we talked about in the last workshop. Really, really useful. Instead of your students just telling you what they need during your session and you scribbling it down on a screen, why not ask students to write what they need, what they want to do during their English training on sticky notes, and have the sticky notes all plastered over your whiteboard. Plus, a good whiteboard will give you the option to download the contents either as a picture, PNG, or JPEG format. So it's a nice way to document what your students have filled in during the needs analysis. No more scribbling down and taking notes. You just ask them to put their sticky notes and plaster the wall with their needs and their wishes for their English training. Really nice and playful. You can build word clouds, of course. You can label technical depictions or schematic presentations if you're on the technical side of things. So really, really useful. And this is what, for example, one of mine looks like. So this is a super, super big whiteboard. It is in its original format. It's like 5 times as big, and I can just move around in it. As you can see, this is from a German as a foreign language lesson in which we were talking about quantifiers. The students had major issues with things like wenige, einige, ein paar, and stuff like that. So I asked them to organize the words, and they've come up with arrows and with descriptions themselves. So everything they put on there themselves using the sticky notes, which you can see in the upper menu bar. And one student had a funny question in which he wanted to know, asking me, what does the idiom auf der Kippe stehen mean? And since I couldn't explain it in German properly, I decided to draw it. And because the drawing was so bad, I decided not to have it on the whiteboard for you to see. But that's the nice thing to have. You have various options available, and if there is something you cannot explain, you can draw it, no problem. You could even play games as icebreakers, ask students to draw an idiom, for example, and have the others guess what the student is drawing. So lots of fun things are possible with external whiteboards and internal whiteboards as well. So I can see some of you are already sharing their experiences with the whiteboards. Super. Yeah, I can see some of you use MS Teams, for example. Lots of games are possible on whiteboards. You could play Jeopardy, you could drawing games, you could play riddles on whiteboards. So really, really, really nice tool. The whiteboard I'm using, which I'm referring to in the handout, can cover up to large groups, so up to 50 to 100 students could work on one whiteboard, theoretically speaking. Thank goodness my classes are a lot smaller, but just so you know, it has a huge capacity and you should probably check out before. Okay, so concept boards and whiteboards are a nice thing to have. What else can we use as digital helpers? So what about storytelling tools? Storytelling, is that something you use in class, you find useful? Could you share in the chat whether that is something you're interested in or you're using at all? And to the question about WebEx, I can answer yes. No storytelling. Question about protection of students' personal data when using whiteboards. This is why I only use whiteboards which don't ask students to register. So what pops up is either their initials, they can give them each other fun names if they want to, or just use C, B, A, or whatever to protect their students' names, to protect their own names. So storytelling tools, okay. Storytelling is something that's come up recently also in the area of business and marketing. So it's not when I say storytelling, I'm not necessarily thinking about children telling stories or fairy tale stories or something like this. I'm thinking about telling the story of a company, telling the story of a successful product, for example. Tell a story that makes me buy a certain product or that coaxes me into buying a certain product. So I'm thinking of storytelling as a means to present business-like content. And the kind of tool that you could use, a storytelling tool, should have the following features. It should have preferably different boards. So before I was referring to the super big whiteboard that I use, which is literally speaking only a whiteboard. A storytelling board should offer you different design and layout options. Like, for example, a design that offers different frames into which you can put different pictures. Or I use one, for example, in which I've collected all the books and newspapers and links that students have collected during class. It should have easy access again without student registration, so talking about data protection. And what I also use it for is to make mini presentations, for example, be it company history, project history, development of a certain product, looking back into the company's historical past, for example. I use pics and photos for storytelling. All this is really, really useful to empower students to get on board. So instead of just looking at a photo that you present, it invites them to bring a photo on board. And these, to bring on board, literally speaking, to bring onto the board, which means the storytelling board should be really, really easy to use. So I've added a few to the handout, which I find easy to use, and I've seen that some of you already listed a few in the chat that I also know and that I would also recommend. One, for example, that I use looks like this. This is the beginning of a project. The layout is a suggestion by the board. This is a timeline layout. And what I've invited my students to do is I would like them to create a company history. This time it's not their company, but I invited them to create the company, the history of a fictional company. And they started by saying, for example, it was founded in 1752, for example. So the next picture shows, obviously not really the first site, but the student will enter a drawing, for example. When you move on the timeline, you would see further text fields popping up, which I've now deleted because I had names in there for data protection reasons. But what you do is you just double click on the timeline, and then another text field opens, and into this text field you could basically put anything. You could put in an audio, so the student might tell you something about the company history that he envisages. You could put in a link, you could put in a picture, you could put in a drawing like what I've done. You could basically put in anything. So you make this a very interactive company history project, including multimedia content. A lot nicer and I find a lot nicer and a lot more collaborative than just writing it down. This one that I'm using here is also available for free, up to a certain number of students, and I found it really, really helpful. I just share the link with my students, I make them editors, and off we go. It's a really useful, helpful board. What you can also use storytelling tools for pictures. I started a photo-taking storytelling board with my students, especially in Corona times, in which I asked them to take a picture, one picture each day with their smartphones of a place they particularly like. So it could be their living room, could be their kitchen, could be a place outside their garden, their new car, whatever it might be, and upload it to the board. So by now we've collected a beautiful board full of pictures that show all sorts of things that I undoubtedly would not know would I only meet my students on screen like I'm meeting you now. Plus, it's a beautiful archive for students themselves, and it gives us a hell of a lot of vocabulary to talk about. So lots of things that students will want to label, will want to put a label on, things they will not simply know that they will not know the words for. Like the other day, we had a recipe, for example, on a storytelling board, and nobody knew the word for Trockenhefe. So something they needed to look up and then put into the board. So what I'm saying is it empowers students to get on board. It empowers them to do more than just look at given content. And this I find so, so rewarding and so nice to do together with students. Could be business context, or could be business context, or could be everyday English. No matter. You can use whiteboards and storytelling tools for anything. They're multi-purpose tools that I can really, really strongly advise you to use. I'll do that almost every time, and as you can see, I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay. So if there isn't anything else you'd like to know, then I'd like to hear in the chat what kind of questions you have and what kind of tools you use. So the more, the merrier. So please write into the chat, what is it that you still need, that you would like to work on? I'm sure I'm happy to comment on it and to see what would be useful for you. I can already see a lot of students typing. So this is the look that you get when I'm looking at the chat and I'm waiting for the chat chat interest to pop up. Okay. Somebody's asking for more interactive, more ideas of what games would work well, for example. So what I do, for example, I sometimes prepare a vocab game with a lot of sticky notes, and I ask them to, for example, find the odd one out, or to match them, or to group them, or I upload a picture, for example. In my case, it was a technical English class, so it was a part of machinery, and I asked students to collect as many words as they can and add them in sticky notes to the machine within 15 seconds. So get some competition on board, for example. You can also have sticky notes consisting of different pictures to make a puzzle. So put one sticky note on board and say, what do you think this might be? And maybe it's part of a tree or of a building. Then add another sticky note. Ask them, so what do you think this is now? So add it to the first sticky note that you put in there, as if you have this kind of jigsaw puzzle experience. So that works well, for example. And the question with regard to GoToMeeting, yes, it does. So answer to this question regarding the GoToMeeting whiteboard, yes. For those of you guys who prefer PowerPoints to whiteboards, PowerPoints are wonderful to have because they enable you to have nice animations. You can prepare a lot of things beforehand and just give students a wonderful visual experience. The downside of PowerPoint is that even if you share the screen and ask students to type something on your PowerPoint, it easily distorts your beautiful layout. On a whiteboard, this can't happen because everything is very, very flexible and movable. So if somebody puts something right over your shape that you've put on your whiteboard, you just move it aside. No issue. With a pre-formatted and beautifully animated PowerPoint, this might from time to time be an issue. Somebody's asking whether all students' contribution to whiteboards are always shown. That's the idea behind it. Everything that is happening on the whiteboard is visible, at least my experience or my belief is that it should be visible to everybody. That whenever somebody's typing something, the other should see, because that's the idea behind it, is that people get emotionally attached to what the others are doing, because they can see, Susanna is typing something, and Bernd is typing something, and Margaret is typing something, and she's typed something that I also wanted to type. So I feel empowered by this. I feel like, this is something that somebody else is thinking too. So I might maybe want to add something to that, or just give her a thumbs up, for example. So the idea behind it is that you do it together, as if you were really all standing around a whiteboard, working together on a project, a topic, or whatever you have in mind. You can theoretically control who contributes to the whiteboard by stopping interactive use. So if you stop the Freigabe, it will probably say if you use a German platform or if you use a platform in German language, then nobody is able to add anything to the board. Of course, you could theoretically also only share the board with a few students and make a few students the editors and the other students the reviewers or the readers. You could organize group work in that way. So have a team of students prepare something on the whiteboard and then have the other group of students comment on that, correct it maybe, beautify it, whatever is in your mind. So the answer to that is yes, you could theoretically disallow certain students to work on the whiteboard. To work on it, not to enter. To enter, I would always allow everybody to enter, but to work, you could disallow. I have a few questions popped up as to what kind of tools I use. I added a few to the handout at the end of the workshop. So this is why I'm not referring to this directly, because there's such a wealth of material there together with the Cornelsen material. I think this makes a very, very nice mix of everything. This is why I call it supplementary material. It's very nice supplementary add-ons to the groundwork that proper lesson planning does do. Okay, so I'm sure there's still tons of questions around, so I'm just going to move forward and say thank you very much for joining today. The more you share in the chat, the more I appreciate it. And I've taken so many hints already and tips from you and for you typing into the chat, so thank you very much for that. And thank you for joining us today. And over to you, Özlem.